Hi, I'm Dave Nunnally, and it is my pleasure to introduce you to Coyote Chris Sutton. Now, many of you have watched Chris before. You've seen him on VidiSpace. You've seen him all around the country, traveling around, going to the different paranormal conferences. Some of you might have even investigated with Chris here at Mineral Springs or elsewhere. This next episode is called Walk the Path, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that before we bring Chris on. Chris Sutton, not only is he an amazing dear friend of mine, but he is the epitome of what walk the path means. Chris practices everything that he preaches. He is a really well-known healer, psychic, medium, shaman. He kind of does a little bit of everything. But the good part about Chris is he does all of it really, really well. Tonight what we're going to talk about is what Chris does as he goes out and does these investigations, as he does psychic healings, as he works with folks as a medium, and how does his background as a shaman impact all of those things he does. So I know I'm excited to watch this episode, and I know you're excited to get reacquainted with Chris after this time. So join me tonight as we welcome Coyote Chris Sutton for Walk the Path. Thank you. Welcome back to Mineral Springs, Chris.
Thank you, Dave. It's always great to be here, as you know. I love being here and investigating and hanging out with you and your lovely wife, Donna, and the great crew here and all the great events we've had. So it's always a pleasure to be sitting down with you.
Well, you've been up to a lot of stuff other than just Mineral Springs and just the Riverbend area. Mm-hmm. You had a benefit here just the other day,
right,
for Mauna Kea. Mm-hmm. Can you tell everyone a little bit about that?
Sure. In Hawaii, on the island of Hawaii, is Mauna Kea, and Mauna is one of the most holy places in Hawaii. And you've known me for several years now. You know, one of the things I'm interested in is preserving natural places, also preserving places that are sacred to the native folks that live there. Not the settlers, but the Native Americans, the first people who were here, and these places are sacred to them. And I got very interested in the Mauna Kea because the Kukai Mauna, the protectors of Mauna, are so peaceful, and they walk their talk, and it's just such a beautiful thing to watch when they're together and they're singing the songs that they have sung from Mauna. And it's just such a display. You know, even Jason Momoa, Aquaman, shows up, and he's got this headdress, this traditional Hawaiian regalia on, walking in a crouched duck walk to an elder with a gift, and they have such a cool way of greeting each other. Is that the elder places his head, you bend over, you place your foreheads to each other, and you talk. And it was so cool. But what really got me hooked is that one night this is how I work sometimes. It's hard to describe. Some people might call it praying. To me, it's like communing, but I think prayer and communion is the same thing to me. We're trying to mingle with the energy of what we're trying to connect with. And so one night I went out and spoke, and I said, this is Mauna, this is the sign you give, this is how you support Mauna. Mm-hmm. But I reached out with my energy to give whatever little energy I can give to something so great and to such a great people, the protectors of Mauna. And what I got back was so just that brush, a touch that came back to me from that communion.
Physically, spiritually, emotionally, yes. Or all?
All. I was in tears. I really was. And it was just one of the greatest things that I ever accomplished. And it came at a time where I was just, wanting to offer a prayer and my hope and my love to Mauna and the people. Because the people say, Mauna told me this, Mauna told me that. I totally believed them. Because, she didn't talk to me, but she brushed me. It is the most incredible thing in the world. One of the most incredible things in the world I've ever experienced.
It's amazing, though, to hear your experience with this. Because, we just in the last couple of days, and I don't want to date when we're taping this, Vice when it's going to air, but there's been all of this stuff in the news about protecting the environment, protecting the waters. And we went through this obviously with the protectors for the waters up in the Lakota lands.
Yeah, the Standing Rock Reservation folks.
I'm not going to say a billboard, but you practice what you preach. You've got the tattoos to show this because you keep it close to you, and it's always with you.
After she brushed me, I went out and got this done. My buddy Jeremy did that for me, and I got this.
Yeah,
this part right here. This was for the Standing Rock folks, and there was a tattoo. We live right next to St. Louis, and so I go to the guy over there on Thanksgiving Day. He's doing these tattoos for $50, and all the money. He said all the money to the Standing Rock people. And so I told my son Max, I said, we're going. So Max got one, I got one.
And that he did it on Thanksgiving is really important because that holiday is not what it is supposed to be. No. That holiday means something totally different to First Nation people.
Certainly does.
So, I mean, so you're right here in Alton, and all of these things are going on around the world, and you are actively involved as best as you can from here. But do you see sort of this renaissance going on globally, where people are becoming more aware of spirituality, more aware of what the mountains might have to say, what the waters have to say? I mean, that's exactly what shamans do. I mean, how is this impacting you and the demand for what you do?
Some days I get so hopeful. You see, young Greta Thunberg, from Sweden, who starts a year ago with one person with a sign saying "School Strike" for the climate in Sweden. And to where she's talking to millions of people, and millions of children are walking out of school because they're concerned about the climate. And as the way I practice, I mean, the mother is everything. She is everything to us. She keeps us alive, and we've been too damn reckless for too long. And I know this is probably political, but I don't care. But what else would you expect me to be? I love the land, I love the water, I love the air. I mean, because I can touch it in different ways that people, if they could, they wanted to. Yeah. Anybody can touch the stuff the way I do if they want to.
It's not political, it's spiritual.
It's spiritual, it's very
spiritual for you.
And that's part of my job. When I didn't get into this, because I watched Dances with Wolves or something like that, I had a profound experience with spirit. And so when you say yes to that sort of thing, I mean, you take on this type of, you kind of become a protector, or you help people, who are protecting her. I wish I could have gone to Standing Rock, but before I had both my hips replaced, and I was in no shape to go to Standing Rock. But
I think this is one of the things that people who know you and are getting to know you through these episodes that we're taping are beginning to appreciate more and more, is that there are many people in let's call it the mediumship business, or the paranormal, or the shaman. I don't even want to call it a business, because that's not really what it is. But they do what they do from 9 to 5. And then they go home and it stops. Right. For you, it's not that at all.
No.
It's 24/7, and it has literally crept into every facet of your life. Yeah. And I don't think you'd have it any other way, because it enables you to get out there, meet people, carry your message, listen and learn from them.
Oh, gosh, yes.
And it's created a great demand. I mean, not only were you here doing that, but you've got events going on. I know you were in Iowa the other day. I've heard you call that your second home. You've got the Ashmore Estates thing with Robin Terry coming up. I mean, how many events a year are you doing now to carry these sort of messages out to people?
Gosh, it depends. Anywhere from, counting the ones where you hear, probably 15. And and that's because I still work full time, and I have budget constraints and things like that. So, but no trip is wasted. I mean, you've heard me. I give up and give a talk about shamanism, or I talk about shamanism, ghost hunting, or about ghost hunting. But I always have there's always a message. You got to listen to the message too. I put it in there subtly, but is it? We all have a gift, and that gift is our will, and then we have intent. That's what we do with our gift. Everybody's got that gift inside of them. And I see so many people walking around numb. The song Comfortably Numb comes to mind, And you see that so often. And I'm like, I just wish for 1 second you could feel what I feel sometimes. And sometimes, I'm not going to lie to you, sometimes it sucks.
It's a blessing and a curse.
It is, because last night I was like very... I want to say on guard, because I kept hearing booms around the house. And I'm sure there's some explanation for it, but I have to think about other things too. Is something? Is the mother's trying to say something? Is Earth trying to say something? So you just kind of, like my wife Julia says, I'm kind of amped up too much sometimes. But it's kind of the way it goes. I have to, I do shut it down a little bit at work, what I do in my normal job. But I got a picture. I have a little statue of a coyote on my desk, so I don't forget too much. Because you forget. This is so hard. Anybody who's a practitioner, and if you work a regular 9 to 5, if you're immersed in a culture that's constantly in practice, like the first Americans with the tribal structures and their clans and tribes, we're always immersed in these things. We're not. And I see so many people that I just have so much promise, and you can tell they have this light inside them, but nobody's woken them up here. They won't wake up. They can't, because our culture is based on not waking up.
And that's kind of a thing now. People talk about being woke. Is that person woke? And it's become a verb now instead of a way to just describe a consciousness state. And I see that. How do you keep the balance, though? Because you've got the 9 to 5 job. You're on the road 15 weekends at least a year, traveling around, maintaining family. I know you just married your beautiful daughter off not that long ago. Thanks for inviting me to that. That was a wonderful night.
I'm glad you came.
And you've got your son, but you're busy. And so how do you maintain this balance? Because I don't know how you can shut it off and on.
Well, I've been kind of blessed in the fact that I can a little bit. It's like I know when to heighten and when it's okay to come down. So I mean, it does. I mean, and even if I go to an event, I will spend a lot of time, working with people and doing things like that, but not always in that heightened. But when something is presented that causes me to become heightened, whether it's a wonderful person who I've got to talk to that person because they need to hear something. To where I perceive something inside somebody too. Somebody's a threat as well. You also perceive that. And so, but I usually can keep it down to like a normal kind of, and I've got like tripwires, I guess, sets them off. And also, no, I'm there in a heartbeat.
Well, not, because we've talked in the past about paranormal stuff, but let's put all the paranormal stuff in a box and set it aside, and let's talk about mediumship or psychic work or all these words I think can be used interchangeably. I realize it's different modalities for doing different things, but share with the viewers, without violating anyone's privacy, who is there one person that really sticks out in your mind that you've encountered who came to you not knowing they were coming to you for help or for advice or for counsel, but that just happened?
Gosh, there's so many people.
What sticks out in your mind most? If it's not one, what would be the common thread?
That you feel this about a person, or they come to see you and they don't know why they came to see you. I don't know why I'm here. Or I just want to get my fortune told, Oh, okay, which me, I don't tell fortunes. I give people spiritual readings. And so all of a sudden you see that light come on. And they're like, you mean, yes, you have these abilities. And all of a sudden you can kind of see them. And it comes and goes. Because I remember I woke up the first time, it took me a while because you have your ups and downs. Like, well, this is fun, this is bullshit. You run these gamut of emotions because it's so hard to believe, because we're not taught to believe these things. But it's watching the eyes of somebody going, and they got it.
Yeah.
They got it. And and then they'll start telling you stories about themselves, about how I was in this situation, I felt this and this happened. I said, that's it. Just reaffirming. There's so many people just need to be reaffirmed. They just need reaffirmation that, yes, this is you. This is actually truly you.
Do you think you had that same look at that warrior dance, the powwow you went to?
I wish I had a picture of that.
I would love to have been a fly on the wall.
I know. I can't imagine what my face looked like.
Yeah.
To go from a agnostic non-believer to oh shit, there's something here and I don't know how to deal with this.
See, for you, it wasn't even my words, not yours, but it wasn't even a journey. It was a moment in time where there's just this awakening, this flash, and all of a sudden there's this subconscious, unconscious, but more subconscious awareness of everything that's going on around you, that what's going on in the world, and all these messages are, I'm guessing, just firing at you, and you don't even speak the language yet.
No, and I had been firing before that, And I think as I was going to this powwow where I had this epiphany, satori, whatever you want to call it, for a social thing. When Julia, my wife, said, let's go to the powwow, like we talked in last time. And that's what happened. But before that, I mean, I was horribly depressed. I was seeing and feeling things from other people. I worked with delinquent children who were damaged, very damaged, and feeling and seeing what they were feeling and seeing, and I didn't know how to deal with it. So it's like, okay, we better push this guy because like I've said before, they tried to get me in the ring before that, and it didn't. I was too dense to pick it up. But yeah, it's wild.
So, and I know you don't. I mean, where you work now, you work with a much broader array of ages. It's not just children.
No.
It's adults and older people now.
Right.
And book smart, no doubt in my mind. We all know that about you. High functioning, really clever, really brilliant guy. Now, take all that stuff that you learned, that you were told, this is how the world works, this is how people function, this is how they process information, this is how dynamics should be, interpersonal and extrapersonal dynamics, and then take this woken awareness, this energy that hit you in the face. Which one do you go to more often? As you are, I know as a shaman, you go to that one more often, but when you're at your day job, do you count on your intuition more than you did before?
That is still my guiding principle to this day.
Yeah.
I use the other stuff to augment.
Yeah.
This is to explain what I feel and see. And so, been in this business, been in social service a long time. So, what I do is like, okay, this is what I feel, and then I back it up.
Yeah.
And so, I report, and it goes, to the state coffers and stuff like that. You can't be putting down that a spirit told you that this person so and so has this problem, or
the men in black would be knocking on your door.
Yeah, they would. They'd be after me. We wouldn't be sitting here talking today.
But you know what? I said that, and I was joking when I said it, but I shouldn't have said that, and here's why. Because you've developed tremendous notoriety in this community, in Alton, Godfrey, the Riverbend area of Southern Illinois. So much so, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but you've even helped some of the law enforcement, some authority figures help figure some things out, right?
A couple times. I mean, it's more peripherally. I was asked by the Indiana State Police one time to get in a small plane to look for this guy. But there's two reasons I didn't get in that airplane. One, I'm not getting that little bitty airplane. I'm not going to do it. At least at that time I wouldn't have. Two, the guy didn't want to be found.
Right.
He'd left his wife and kids, and after his wife and I spoke, and I knew there was something up. That this guy wasn't killed, this guy wasn't abducted or anything like that. I knew another psychic, and this was pretty early in my career. Both saw the same thing. Dude was in a truck heading to Chicago, but I had seen a vision of him hiding in a cabin in Indiana. And the more I talked to his wife, I found out that what his upbringing would lend to something like this, that he would just disappear. He couldn't take the pressure of being a father and husband, and he split.
And how is, you're talking to these folks, you're involved, the notoriety, let's just call it that. How has that notoriety affected, we know how it's affected you, which it hasn't actually, I've known you for a long time, but it hasn't had much effect on you. You're the same Chris Sutton that I've always known. But how has that notoriety affected your relationships with family? And I think we talked about it just a little bit, but I think it's one of the most valuable lessons someone who has gone through the journey you have can share with others is what was the impact on spouse, on children, on neighborhood, on everything.
And that's a problem a lot of people have, and that is quite true. That's a good question. Initially, it did not go well with my wife. Julia was not overly pleased, and looking at it from the outside in, I understand that here. The man she married had flipped and gone totally different. And so, became spiritual all of a sudden. And I went, once I got into it, I was head first. I've actually come back a little bit, because I thought I was supposed to act a certain way, and because you see, the guys I was taught by were taught by these old guys from South Dakota and stuff like that. And they're very strict about stuff. And so, like I said, she was not happy about it. And it actually was going to, kind of give me a what for at one time. Again, this was back in the late 90s. And so she actually, I love telling the story. She was sitting at the kitchen table going over this in her mind, how she's going to bring this to my attention. When a rock I had picked up from the creek, I used to go creek walking all the time until I had 2 bad hips, and I think it's stupid now because I'd fall and break one. I can't break my hips anymore because they're titanium. But anyway, so this rocks were sitting there, and one was 3-sided. And she said she looked up, and the rock started rolling across the table. It goes do like that. And she looked at that, and there was nothing that could have made that rock move. There was nothing that tipped the table in like that. So at that point, she said she stopped ruminating about this and decided to let this play out. Now, she has been a temper on me at times, and sometimes I bitch about it. But a lot of times she's right. It's like, okay, you need to calm down a little bit, and kind of let's try to bring me back. Now, sometimes it's aggravating, but I understand it. Let's bring you back a little bit. And so she helps ground me, even if and sometimes she's wrong. I'll be, that she shouldn't ground me, but I get it. A lot of times she's right. And so now she understands the weekends and stuff. I mean, the kids are, I didn't do this stuff. I didn't go out places when I was younger. When the kids were young, I didn't do it. I wasn't at that point yet either. And
there's that Sutton boy and his crazy dad.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you don't want that to happen.
No, and the kids were mortified, not because of what I did. They thought that was kind of neat, but they were mortified about the fact that their father was so much different.
Yeah, but what's interesting is I've gotten to know your family over the years. Your kids are following to the best of their ability, to their own inclination in your footsteps. They participate in things with you.
Yeah.
They do talk the talk, and they may not walk the walk. They crawl the walk, at least. But your son particularly, he's a gifted young man that shares many of the. I would say that the knowledge, skills, and abilities that you have. I think.
He does, and you've been exposed to Max more, and he is. It's like one got some of the abilities I have, and the other one got the other abilities. Max loves the hunt in the dark, which I love, and get all because he's a big, strong guy. We're gonna go hunt. Let's go hunting some spooks, And he's all into that and finding the nasty spooks. And I like doing that too. I mean, I enjoy being able to go hunting for things in the dark. Emily, on the other hand, she's very sensitive. She has that empathic stuff that I have, and she's probably got more psychic talent than she's letting on. But they're doing stuff. They're both young adults, and they're and this is with people too. I mean, when you're trying to walk your path and you're a young adult, then it's hard because you've got children, you've got a spouse. And I've talked to so many people, and it's like, I need to put it back. And I get that. I've worked with one lady, her name's Autumn, and we've been working off and on together for 20 years.
Yeah.
She was working, she's doing the shaman teaching. She's the closest thing I've ever had to an apprentice. But she got married, she had a kid, and so she'd pop back in. We'd do a little teaching or do hanging out, and then now she's bringing her son, her son Caden, and that's just is really cool. But but you do have to do that, and I had to do it, and other people have to do it. The thing is you can't give up.
Right. You've
got to do what you can do. I didn't practice in Alton or Godfrey, where I live. That's where my family was. That's where my kids went to school. So you have to change, and you just can't say, well, God gave me these gifts, I'm going to do this, I don't give a shit what my family thinks. That's not going to play well. It doesn't play well with your family. It's not going to play well with spirit either. Because you're given these gifts for a reason, but not to, at the expense of your family life and taking care of your children and being a good husband or wife or a good partner. And so that's another thing that people have to be very careful about, is to govern that. So what I would do is I would go into St. Louis, which is right across the river, Bethalto, where my friend Cindy Little Lizard had a shop, and I worked there, out of sight, out of mind, until I got in the paper one day, and then they had to deal with it. But they were both pretty old by then, so it was. Now everybody think, other friends think it's all cool.
Well, now today's show is about walking the path, and so you're talking about going to places like Bethalto, St. Louis, to sort of to get your feet wet.
Yeah.
Tell me what the swimming pool was like. Describe it for me. Was the first thing that you started doing, we're going to have to categorize it, I don't like doing that, psychic work, medium work, and path work, shaman work. Okay.
First thing I ever did was tarot cards.
Okay.
And you have to, some people pick up a deck of those things that can do them, read the book once, can do it. I chose, and I'm saying you can't do that because you can. I know people are very good at that. And maybe today I could probably do it myself. Back then, I wanted a structure to work from, so I went and studied from a guy in Chicago, a Mohegan Indian, who taught me his name was Gunn Hollingsworth, who taught me the Tarot, as based on the rider weight. It's a Native American Tarot, but it's based on the 78 card rider weight deck. And showed me a spread called the Tarot Mandela, which is a 21 card spread. And for readers out there and people who get readings know that's a pretty big spread. But it shows a lot of your past, present, and future. And the way I always interpret it always comes around to spiritual things. And so here I am. I just started out, and I lived in the Kankakee, Illinois area at the time, and some friends of mine owned a coffee shop there. And so I remember I'll never forget the night of my first gig. And I was talking to them. They said, "Yeah, come up and do readings, and I charged like $5, something like that, whatever.
Yeah.
Or let's put a tip jar out or something. I forgot how I did it. I made about $15-20. And it was good. People were like, yeah, it was nobody, said, fraud, fake, or anything like that. So it was all good. And so I got me a little money. I'm a professional now, I'm just feeling all crazy and good about myself. I got home, there's a big old pile of dirty dishes in my night to do the dishes. And so I had to go to do the dishes.
Life goes on.
It does.
Life goes on.
When you say with the old Zen saying is, before I was enlightened, I chopped wood and carried water. And then after I was enlightened, I chopped wood and carried water. It doesn't mean shit. You have to go. You have to be who you are. And you got responsibilities in this life.
It's funny. I mean, and I didn't realize that the Tarot was the first thing that you did. But for the viewers, I have a periodic thing I do with cards where I do readings on the river at a little town called Grafton, just north of here. And my wife and I were on travel for business out in Colorado. And I had written the dates down wrong. I screwed this thing up. And I called you, I think the day before, and said, Chris, I can't do the river cruise.
It was actually 12:20 at night.
Yeah,
Friday night.
I can't do it. Well, it was 11:20 where I was, so it wasn't so bad. But I can't do it. And could you? And not only were you like, absolutely, I can do it. It was, what can I do to make it better?
Yeah.
Where do I need to be? How does this work? And so, these lessons that you learned up in Chicago, this stuff has become instinctual. It's intuitive.
Oh, yeah.
It's, you can go anywhere, and you don't even need the tools anymore for working with people and reading people because you can tell.
You can tell. I mean, tarot cards are good for telling a story. And you know this. You're a tarot reader. You're a good tarot reader. But that's what the cards are good for. You can pick up snatches and stuff and probably put it together. But you got those cards out there, but you can just tell a story. And and people are like, oh, yeah. And they relate to that. People need something to see. A lot of this stuff when you practice, whether you're doing tarot or psychic work, healing work, paranormal work, as you know, you need tools. If people want to see flashing lights, people want to see rattles and smoke, and when you're doing healing work and things like that, when you're doing psychic work, they prefer to have you, be able to put something in front of them, whether it's tarot or numerology or runes or things like that, so you can point to them. It makes them feel, like it's more of a real thing to them, something they can look at.
It's funny because I think as people begin to move down their path where they are more accepting of those things for identifying challenges that they may face in life or use those as ways to explain the unexplainable, they begin to get less and less reliant on them. When we do an investigation, the first thing anyone wants to do is to hold the K2 meter or the ovilus. And so this thing can spit out words all night long.
Right.
And then there's lots of assumptions made about these words, and they begin to say, oh, well, that's a story. Those are sentences. Let's throw a couple of verbs in there and we figured it all out. And anyone that investigates knows the most useful tool is this. And that's all you really need.
Yeah.
So you start off with this very, my words, not yours, with tarot, and let's call it mechanical. It's not rote memorization, but it's very mechanical. The numbers mean certain things, the suits mean certain things. Then what? What happened after that? Tell me more about the development.
But then it's just, and I still to this day use the numbers, I use the suits.
But you teach numerology classes.
In the picture, I teach numerology, that's true. But you start looking at the pictures. And all of a sudden, they'll start talking to you. But then what really changed, because I used to focus, like you're right, I used to focus on the cards. Now it's like, I use the cards to support what I'm feeling from this person. And I can pick out this, and this, And okay, I feel that there's father issue here. Bam, right there in the past. And the tarot spread is an inverted warrior of some kind. You know, that usually indicates a negative male aspect in somebody's life. And so again, it goes back. It's just a tool to help tell a story.
But it's also helped. I'm hearing. I'm reading into this, and tell me if I'm wrong. But I'm hearing you talk about expanding what you do. What was initially sort of very, I want to use the word clinical, but that's not the right word. But what was initially advice, what was initially sort of this is what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
Now you're digging much deeper. This is much more comprehensive, and you're talking about root causes of things that can go back years, decades, generations, and families. About structures, buildings, land. You're starting. Well, you're not starting to. You've been rolling all of these things into it to be much, 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 much more comprehensive, which is kind of what everyone knows about Coyote Chris Sutton.
Yeah, that's and that's true because it's about when I do a reading, it's about looking into a person and not only seeing what causes their anxieties, what causes their issues of today, and to be able to talk to them because I've been talking with people about their issues for 30 freaking years, as my other job, my normal muggle job, what do you want to call it, and so it becomes that it's not just well, here's what I see, here's what I feel, here's what I know you feel, but here's what I see in you, this potential,
right?
And this is my secret. Okay, I'm going to tell you my secret. That every reading, every time I listen to somebody, I want to pull that potential that they don't see out to where they can see it or to where they can believe it. Because before, everybody's already told them it's crap. I get so many people have been raised that way. But to be able to pull out this potential in them and to show them how they can succeed bringing it out. How it can work for them. What pratfalls will be, this is what's going to trip you up because I know you, this is what's going to trip you up. And you need to watch for that. Some of the things I'm telling you about now, about watching out for, your husband's not going to be real crazy about it at first, but that's something you need to work with, and work down.
What about you personally? When you talk about people's vulnerabilities, and this is what I think folks are going to be very interested in to learn about you. People come to you and they're seeking answers, and they've exhausted the more what's the word I'm looking for? They've exhausted the more not domestic, but the more sort of non-esoteric ways of figuring things out. Medical doctors, psychiatrists, whatever, churches, schools, support groups.
Oh, yeah.
But now they're coming to Coyote Chris Sutton, shaman, psychic, healer, empath, medium, and they're having answers. They're finding answers. You're able to communicate with them. What about you? What are your vulnerabilities? What keeps you up at night? What's the one thing, if you had to pick anything, that remains unanswerable for you?
What scares me? It's very, it's almost, it's hard to describe, but it's like mortality in and of itself does not scare me. How I become unmortal scares me. That my father died of Alzheimer's. And the last way I want to go out is the way I saw my father go out, who was a brilliant man. And to see that, to realize the one day when we were playing Trivial Pursuit and he lands on arts and entertainment, books stuff. And the question was, well, who was Tiny Tim's father? My father taught A Christmas Carol in English classes. He did not know Bob Cratchit's name.
He couldn't speak. He
didn't know.
He had no clue.
He could speak. No,
How did that affect him?
Scared him. He played his off well because that's how my dad was.
Yeah.
He played shit off really well.
What did it do to you?
Scared me.
Yeah.
I thought, here we go. The long goodbye. That's what Alzheimer's is.
Right.
because he lived another 10 years.
Oh my goodness.
It would be 91.
Yeah, I've never asked you about that before. So, wow, that is that wasn't the answer I was expecting. I was expecting something not nearly so personal. So that takes a second to sort of digest.
I mean, I don't mind being honest about that. I actually talked to Julie the other day about we're starting a different diet. You know, it improves your mind function. Now, my father's father did not have it.
Right.
My maternal grandfather died of a stroke. I've got that under control. You know.
And your mother passed away not all that long ago.
No,
It's been about a year or two. It's
couple
about 2
years.
years now. Yeah. So.
She was 87. She had congestive heart failure, and kidney issues. But that's that side of her sisters all had the same thing. They all lived to be there in the late 80s. But she cognitively, until the very end, she was fine.
So it's that cognitive function, being that spatial awareness of where you are, who you're talking to, what's going on, you know, becoming unaware.
Yeah.
Because I think to you, when you had the experience at the powwow, when you were woke and you have all this awareness, I think the biggest fear sounds like it's losing this awareness, that you may just not have it.
Now, you know, and I believe that after I give up the mortal coil, that I'm back there again. But that interim scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's other things that scare me, but nothing like that. I mean, you know, you and I have walked in the darkest places and don't, you know, just swagger in there. That stuff doesn't scare me. That stuff never scares me.
Ghosts aren't going to do anything to us.
No, I know. Well, they might, but I'm not scared anyway.
Yeah.
You know, if I was going to go out, I'd rather go out like Gandalf on the bridge of Khazad-dûm, die that way, than be 91 and not know who the hell you are.
Yeah.
You know, that's how I like to walk. Is like, if I could die in the service of somebody else, it's like the same oath you took when you were in the Navy for 30 years. If I could die in the service of somebody else, I would rather do that than to die like my father had to.
It's more meaningful. It is much more meaningful, I think, in a way, because there's this legacy, there's this awareness. You know, I talk about it occasionally, about sort of the Buddhist concept of three deaths: the physical death, the put in the ground and never seen again, but that recollection of the person. As long as they're still alive in your mind, then they're not dead. No. Because you're still recalling those lessons, those words, those touches that you had with them, and that stays with you until you're gone. And if you're high functioning enough to share those experiences with your children or grandchildren or great grandchildren, then the person continues to live in perpetuity. They don't ever go anywhere. Right. They're always with us, and your father's with you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, always. Yeah. Actually, I saw him one time when Max and I were out playing tennis. I looked up, just happened to glance up at the car, my car, and he was sitting there watching us. Yeah. And so he loved tennis. You know, he's a tennis coach, and so yeah.
I know he's close to your heart because I hear you drop literature references. It not often, but every once in a great while, you'll drop a pretty spot-on literature reference, and it's from being well-read, but it's also from the influence that he had on your life. So that's an amazing thing. That is a really beautiful thing to have. Talk to me a little bit about when you started. You were talking about Bethalto in St. Louis, and then becoming more aware of your skills and your abilities. The article was published in the paper. The cat's out of the bag. People know who Chris Sutton is. They know what he does when he's not, at his day job. When did the calls start coming in to do house cleansings and going to places to help people?
Those were kind of coming in at roundabout, because I kind of set up shop at out in Bethalto at a little shop of ours, Sandy's place. So I was still doing that stuff, but again on the down low. And most of the people asking for house cleansing are not going to know the people who are associated with the Alton Booster Club, for sports and things like that. And so there's never been a mad rush. I've always been doing a lot of different things, and this stuff comes and goes in spurts. I've noticed, because I do so many different things. It's never like I'm terribly bogged down with house cleansings and things like that. It seems like you get the call when they need it. But I also know too, and you and I have been on cases before where it's like it's total BS. There's other issues. It's not about demons. It's about the demons in the house are drugs, alcohol, and violence. Are too oftentimes these are often the demons that are causing the problems. And I know a lot of people who won't do house calls anymore. A lot of people don't.
Yeah, I'm reluctant to do them. I've seen more than my fair share and my statistically significant disproportionate amount of addictions and addictive behaviors that were causing what people would say are the hauntings in the house.
Sure.
But it wasn't hauntings, it was addictive addiction, addictive behaviors.
Yeah, because people want to externalize everything. They don't want to be seen as being a drug addict or an alcoholic or as a violent cad.
Yeah.
They want to make it about the demons doing all these things to destroy me and hurt my family and things like that. And people don't want to take responsibility. The most difficult thing to do, and this is one thing you really have to do, walking this path, you've got to know who you are, and you damn well got to be real honest with yourself.
That was my next question. When you were talking about folks externalizing things and making it everyone else's problem or everything else's problem, how do you see yourself? When you get up in the morning and you look in the mirror, do you see Chris Sutton, husband, Chris Sutton, father, Chris Sutton, community member, Chris Sutton, shaman?
It's all one.
All one.
Yeah. It is all one, because that's all me.
But is it a lot to have to manage?
Not if one just manages as it comes.
Yeah.
It's when you start thinking about, I've got to do all this and this and this and this, that you overwhelm yourself.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to do this stuff. And so to varying different degrees. Some people, I practice shamanism and I go do readings and stuff like that. Some people are Shriners.
Yeah.
And they're into clubs and things like that.
But they can take their hat off. You can't.
Yeah,
You've made the choice, the conscious choice to be who you are and what you are. So you walk in a place and people say, who's this guy?
Yeah.
Holy cow, there's something different about him.
I like that.
They do.
But I think it's the thing is what shines through, what is the base for what I do. Everything in my life is through my spiritual connection. Is that connection with spirit, with the land, with Gaia, with Mother Earth, the sky. That's what shines. That just augments everything else. It heightens everything else. Yeah. Whether you do in the community, what you do as a father and a husband, it makes it better if you're being honest with yourself. And you're following through on being the best person you can be.
Right.
It just makes it better.
Where do you think she's taking you next, Gaia? Because we've talked about where you've been. Now let's talk about where this path is going to go through uncharted waters that you don't see yet.
Anytime I try to guess, it's not a good guess.
Where do you want it to go then?
I don't know. I am content. I mean, and it sounds like, most people have goals and things like that. Would I like to go to bigger, and this is one thing I am working on, is I want to do bigger paranormal and spiritual conventions. Mostly because to be around more people. So when I give a presentation, the more people are be able to be there or can choose to be there, And that's not because I want to be a TV star or something like that. It's just because I know if I start thinking that way, things go off the rails real fast. I just have to accept that I accept my medicine, which is to help other people become woke, to find themselves spiritually, bringing light to the darkest places. That's what I do. It doesn't matter whether it's a paranormal event, a psychic fair, I'm doing healing work. It doesn't matter. That's the overlying principle. That's what I'm here to do. I'm not here to be a great teacher. I do teach people, but you even notice I don't teach constantly. I do, you and Donna like, yeah, you want to do classes? Yeah, okay. And I do classes, which helps them with that. But, people have asked me to be like a mentor and things like that. And I don't mind communicating with people, but I can't take people under my wing.
Your strength is working one-on-one with people.
Yeah.
There's not a doubt in my mind because I've seen you do it. And one of the things that I think, and it's not meant to be sort of the mutual admiration society here, but I think one of the things that's most important about what you do is that you approach each situation without any preconceived ideas or solutions.
I try.
You look at people as individuals, and you also do not see them for the demographics that society puts around them. Race, color, creed, orientation, income, doesn't really matter. None of that stuff is important.
No.
You look at the soul, that astral plane existence that someone has in this physical plane, and connect with them. And give them insight into things that they might not otherwise see.
That's what I do.
So when you talk about bringing light to the darkest places, sometimes the darkest places we could ever have is a one-on-one relationship with somebody. I mean, I've seen it. Some of the things that we get to deal with in this line of work when we bring someone to us or someone comes to find us,
Right.
It can just be off the charts dark.
Oh, gosh, yes.
And you come to a place like Mineral Springs like this, and yeah, it's haunted. I got all of that, but it's not dark.
No.
And there's nothing that we do during an investigation in a place like this that's significantly that much different every time. I mean, it is what it is. The building's pretty consistent, but man, when those people come in, though, we can have that one person, though, that comes for an investigation that is super dark, super strong negative energy, and you latch onto that. I've seen you do it every single time where you recognize it.
Sure.
And I'll even see you focus more on that one person, kind of put your arm around them, not metaphorically your arm around them, as you lead them around and talk about the experiences that they're having, and you draw this negative strain of energy out of them and mold it and work with it, and then I see you
throw it away.
Throw it away. It's amazing.
Just to bring that, that's just what I do. It's innate. I just, I don't even think about it.
Yeah.
It's like, I see this person, it's like, I got to talk to this person. I just know it. I just have to do that. They're here for a reason. And you've seen this too, where somebody else show up and it's like, why in the hell is this person here? All of a sudden, you brush that cobweb stuff out and you look, oh, that's why they're here.
Yeah.
They need something.
So this path that you're on, it's pretty wide. There's a lot of room for people to walk beside you.
Sure.
So how do they find you?
That's a good question. I mean, obviously I have a website and I am on Facebook and all these other things. Some people find me that way. A lot of times they don't know why they find me. They just find me. And those are the ones that really need you. Because Spirit brought them to you.
Yeah. Now, as we talked about the different sort of modalities that you do, one of the areas that we didn't dig into too much is healing. And I think this is very interesting. I think this is something that folks look at with a skeptical eye.
Oh, sure.
And that's fair. But I think it's because they don't understand. Tell me what goes on with the shamanic healing.
Well, to me, and it's the way I've been taught and the way I've observed, I've seen, it's not about me. My job is to clean myself enough to where Spirit, God, whatever you want, Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it, G, comes through as uninhibited as it can, because we all carry around stuff. When we're preparing to do healing work, we want to, at least my team, the way I learned is you become a hollow bone. You bring energy from earth and sky. If things get clogged, you pull them out with your hands, throw them to Spirit. You focus on people, a loved one, a local person, or somebody in the world, and send them healing energy, which is, makes the energy flow, because energy flows the whole time, because you're telling your body, yes, it must flow the whole time. And it does. So you're ready to go. When you're done with that, you're ready to go. Your hellbone, then you get the hell out of the way. And let that connection with Spirit tells you what to do. I carry around my backpack. I have everything I need in there. I've seen people carry steamer trunks full of crap, basically, what it looks like. And that's okay. That's how they walk, and I understand. Some people have a stone for everything. Yeah. I got a quartz crystal and a few little stones.
That covers it all.
Yeah, it covers it all. I can tell a quartz crystal what to do.
Yeah.
It does anything. But I've got other things. I'm fond of amethyst and selenite. I carry a wand of selenite sometimes. But it's, I work with a lot of tools. I use a rattle and the feather and the smoke and things like that. And a lot of people believe that that's the thing itself, and that's not the thing itself. Those are tools. Those remind me that what I'm doing. And then, like I talked earlier about will and intent. I've got the will. I've got the medicine. It's flowing through me, and it's what I do with it. these things that I use are bringing that energy to it, to what you want. Okay, so I get this person, I want this clean, beautiful energy that's flowing through me. It's not mine. It's not mine, but I'm borrowing it, so to speak, or letting it come through, and just putting it in places and people, and it goes. I mean, sometimes I can feel it. You run your hand on the outside, and I rarely touch people, and just you feel spots and you put it in there. Or I even got a little jazzy, and I use chakras too. Like Donna does with her Reiki and stuff like that. You're Donna, and so I go to the crown, and because it works. I can feel the energy there, and so why not?
There's so many different ways to describe the same thing.
Yeah.
Whether it's a Native American modality, whether it's a dharmic modality like chakras would be. It's interesting. You said you're borrowing that energy, and folks that know you and know us from here have heard people talk about this hollow bone. Let's call it a technique that you have used.
I call it meditation, but it's
Who'd you borrow it from?
That actually came from Frank Foolscrow,
Yeah.
and he taught to a lot of people. He was a Lakota holy man, and we've talked about Grandpa before.
Tell me about the first time you did it, though. Do you remember the experience? Because I remember the first time you taught me how to do that, and I remember exactly what happened to me. I very, very clearly what I felt, what I saw, what I experienced. Do you remember yours?
Okay, because I had actually learned it first before I met. It's funny. I read a book about him. It's like an interview with him, and he describes it. So I did it from that. This is before I met Jim Gillihan. These guys that knew Grandpa, and it's coming back to me now. It was pretty cool. I mean, because back then it's like you're experimenting with sex for the first time. You get your body has these really crazy feelings, and so it's like that. I mean, it's just like this.
It's like astral travel, man.
It is. It's just a rush.
Yeah.
And you feel so connected, and even to this day, though, I still feel the same way. And I will say, the last we at the Coyote Chris's Crazy Kayak Spiritual Circle last time we had healing night, and so we started with doing the hollow bone, and I hadn't done it since I had my second hip replaced. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking, well, I hope this works. Hope it goes up to titanium. Yeah, it did. Of course it did. Of course it worked, because I still have skin and fly. That would have worked anyway. But it was some of those little silly things you think about. Shit, I don't know about this, but but it's just it is like that. I mean, it's just that amazing. I wish I could teach the freaking connection. I wish I could show you like I could show these colors and things come in my hand and infecting you and things like that. When I teach people, sometimes I go out to like a forest area, forest preserve, something like that. We have a great one here in Godfrey. And the best way to teach people how to experience energy of another being is to get them to a good sized tree. Trees have the most wonderful energy. And they will exchange it with you, and you can get this flow going between you and that tree. And I used to take some of these kids I used to work with out after I started learning. I took them out these places, and they were just amazed. These city kids, were out in an area with all these trees, and could feel these trees and things like that.
And that almost brings us back to where we started when we were talking about this broader, grander awakening that's going around the world when it comes to concepts such as environmentalism or social activism, all of these things. What is it like? Tell I don't know how you would encapsulate this or capture it, but as a shaman in let's call it a secular world, because it is.
Right.
But there's there's an awareness, and it's growing, and it's not growing linearly, it's growing exponentially. People are becoming more and more and more embracing. I read a story, it was on Huffington Post the other day, I think it was referenced in the New York Times, and it was the preponderance of people who are embracing neo-pagan, Wiccan, Norse, shamanistic, all of these sort of religions, and I'm going to call them of the earth. Those are my words, not yours. But but accepting these things that have been here for eons and walking away from things that have failed to
Right.
explain things. So, what's the daily walk like?
Well, it's so strange because you feel that hope. These people, the climate, people who are championing the mother and who are trying to connect with spirit. They're trying to connect with the chi, which is also of earth, which is more Buddhist and Taoist, which is also amazing stuff. I love Taoism. And a side note, real quick, study these little Eastern stuff because this little Eastern stuff's pretty cool. And that's I read whole kinds of stuff, but to try to, so I never knew who I would come across. I could speak their language, but yeah, I mean, there's all these people trying to do these different things, and you start to feel this hope coming up there. But one thing in the circles of talk about. I mean, I've talked to energy people, psychics, mediums, people who I really trust from coast to coast, and there's also this darkness that's very, very scary right now. And this came across. I thought about this the other day, and it's probably overreacting, but I got a sort of a feeling like it's almost like being in Stephen King's The Stand, where you have the one group. We've had so we haven't had a plague that's wiped out 97% of the population, but you have a group of people gathering really in the darkness, and you have a group of people gathering in the light. So is this going to balance out, or what's going to happen? Usually when you've got this type of energy moving around, there's bound to be some type of reaction in some way or another. It's not going to remain static. So, I mean, that's amongst, practitioners of these sort of things, the Wiccans and everyone, all think, geez, it's so hopeful and so scary at the same time.
We have these wild swings. I mean, history does this. We
does.
have these periods of religious revivalism in the country. We have periods where we turn our backs towards what we could call the church, and people look at alternative modalities for understanding the world that they live in. And it just, the pendulum swings, and it just does. And you're right about that. It's a very interesting time, I think, that we live in, and I don't know that I would want to live at any other time because the awareness is so strong right now, and people are receptive. And I don't think, in the 80s and the 90s, I don't think people were nearly as receptive to, some of these things.
It's gone up and down. I mean, there was back in the late 70s, early 80s, there was a big, and in the 90s, there was a big interest in Native American spirituality, that type of thing. I mean, there's no one, of course, there's 500 something different ones, but that's, how people were into that. Now it's like, not so much, it's more into other things. Everybody's into Reiki. It comes in ebbs and flows just like history does. And but it's all good. I mean, that stuff's all good. It doesn't matter. I mean, I just happened to show up at a freaking powwow, and that's where I got into where I'm at. I mean, if I'd have been to a Renaissance fair or a pagan picnic, it might have been different. I might be wearing Viking horns and carrying an axe around or something like that,
The butterfly flapped its wings at the powwow, and look at the trajectory that you've been on ever since.
It's exactly right. I mean, it's how it is, and that's where Spirit put me, and that's how I truly believe. If I hadn't, and this is how it works, before, I mean, I'd had a fiance before, broke up, had a wife before, divorced. I married Julia. If I don't marry Julia, I don't go to the powwow because it was her idea. It's her fault. So, those things happen. That trajectory depends so much upon, people say you look at your life and it reads like a novel. And there's parts of novels, and novels aren't any good unless there's some bad stuff in them that happens to the main character. And you got to look at your own life like a novel. That, you went through all this bad stuff, and I tell people this all the time, take heart, because you went through this bad stuff, the pain, and all these things you had to go through, mistreatment, whatever it was, a bad marriage, bad parents, whatever, and you're sitting with me today, or you're out in this world today, and you went through that so you can come out the other side and say, I survived, now I'm going to put my hand out and I'm going to help you survive.
Life puts you where you're supposed to be, and until you have that vacancy, that chasm, that place where energy needs to go, you can't receive it.
Right.
And that's, I think, the most beautiful thing about you and what you do is the universe puts people in your path when they need to be there. And as you walk your path, you encounter these folks.
I like to think so, yeah. It's worked out so far. So.
And it's just, hey, brother, take a drink. Here, have a bite.
Yeah.
I can help you.
Here's a match.
Yeah.
Lights you up.
Yeah. That's what it's all about.
That is what it's all about.
So cool. Very good. What else? What else should we talk about tonight?
Ooh, let's see. God, I can always talk about anything. You talked earlier about where to go next, and that's such an interesting question to me because I love to entertain it, but it's like I'd love to know. But I think that, and this goes for everybody, not just me, people get so far looking ahead, they miss what's right in front of them. I had to learn that. And I always like to say, life is a 3-act play, but you're always in the second act. If you worry about, and I used to, do community and things like that, so I know about acting a little bit, and I know if I'm thinking about a mess up I did in the first act, I'm going to mess up something in the second act. If I'm thinking about my lines in the third act, I'm going to mess up somehow. I'm not going to see something, I'm going to miss a cue in the second act where I'm supposed to be. Stay in the present. Let things happen. You can plan, make plans. That's why I made plans. And by planning, what I mean is I've made myself, put myself in a place where I can go different places just because of what I do. I can talk about shamanism, I can talk about spirituality, I can talk about ghost hunting, but it's always with a unique twist of,
But those plans are logistics. It's like, I'm going to go to this place. What you're talking more about is, where do we go from here? Where do you go from here? It's not logistics. This is the spiritual journey that you're on. And where does it take you? And you just never know. People. It's like our relationship. We got put in front of each other a few years back at exactly the right time that we needed that to happen, so that we could forge this bond, this friendship.
Right. You thought I was coming to rob the shop. I remember.
Well, yeah. I mean, that was the word on the street. At least that's what I saw written next to your name in the bathroom. Is keep an eye on this guy. But it is. It was serendipity or kismet or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter to me.
We were supposed to meet.
Yeah. And that's how it works.
Our families are supposed to meet, and
I think that's the strength that you bring to the table as a shaman is the people who need to find you. Either through direction or through just randomness in the world, but that ability to take those individuals and have a little bit of impact on them, not necessarily straighten their trajectory in life or their path in life, but to put your arm around them and show them that there's more to it, and the path can be very broad, and it's a very beautiful thing. That's what it's all about.
Yep.
Very good.
Exactly right.
Cool.